So Genshin Impact has been out for quite a few months now, and I think it goes without saying that the majority of people know what elemental reactions are, those who have been playing for some time, and I don't think everybody completely grasps the, proper usage of some of these elemental reactions, or maybe some people are just starting and coming over and wanted to see, exactly how to use some of these elemental reactions properly, or even what an elemental reaction is. So I'm going to be breaking down everything that you need to know about elemental reactions and the proper way to use them, just in case that you don't know. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. So the very first one on the list on the fandom is burning. Now, because there is no grass elemental characters in the game, we're not actually going to be covering this one as much, because the only way you can actually trigger this is on things like slimes. So this applies fast ticking, low damage, pyro, damage over time effect. It's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, some of these elemental reactions are just kind of using your head, like pyro and hydro is, guess what, vaporize. It just makes common sense with some of these, but there is a proper way and an improper way to use some of these, so we'll be covering those. But so burning can basically only be triggered on slimes at the moment, so it's not really an elemental reaction yet, until they release a character that's designated to the grass element. The next one we have is crystallize. Now this can be a combination of hydro, electro, cryo, or pyro mixed with geo. So basically what this elemental reaction does will drop a little crystal that when a character picks it up, they will be shielded for a little bit of time. It protects the shield's element more effectively than other types of damage. So if you pick up an electro one, you are going to be shielded from more electro damage. An electro crystal that you pick up off the ground, you're going to be shielded more from electro damage rather than other types of damage. So do keep that in mind. Same thing with hydro. If you pick up a hydro crystal, you're going to be shielded more from hydro elements and damage from the hydro element. So keep that in mind. The next one that we have is electro charge. Now this can be with mixing hydro and electro. And this just is simple damage over time. It does have a high damage output, so please don't sleep on it, because it's one of the strongest for a electro damage Kaching build. Xingqiu and Kaching, you'll see that a lot in physical damage build because of the electro charged. So do keep that in mind. It's a very strong element. So yeah, then moving on, we have frozen. This can be triggered by applying hydro and cryo, and this freezes the target in place. Hitting a frozen enemy with the claymore attacks or geo damage will cause shatter. Now shatter does deal some additional damage, so to keep that in mind, you're going to be getting the frozen effect, and if you're using somebody like Diluc, you can shatter it and it'll give you even extra damage. So that's also very nice for the frozen element. Now we get into a kind of confusing one, not really confusing, just a little more in-depth one, in that he's Melt. And what Melt does is it has two ways of performing. The first one is applying the cryo elements first and the pyro element second. This attack triggers the elemental reaction and will deal 2 times pyro damage. So when you see me play Diluc, this is why I use Shangyang first and then I use Diluc second. I drop Shangyang's E to apply the cryo element first, then I will pop Diluc's E, where it'll apply the pyro element second. So cryo element first, then pyro element second to get your maximum damage. The second element reaction is for Melt is pyro first and then cryo second, and this only has a damage multiplier of 1.5. So you're not going to be dealing double damage like you would with Melt. You're only going to be dealing a time and a half damage, as opposed to 2 times, which is the other way around. Next up we have Overloaded. This deals additional AoE pyro damage, creates an explosive effect, can knock geo shields and chunks. All this is doing is it's giving you like a little a little explosion, and you are going to be dealing extra damage. But yes, overall it is a strong element. Just do be careful, because it can sometimes end up backfire on you, such as knocking your character back when you're using this elemental reaction. So do keep that in mind. Just be careful if you choose to go with this one. But like I said before, all of these elemental reactions are strong, so keep all of these in mind when creating a build. Next up we have Superconduct, and this is cryo and electro. And this deals AoE cryo damage. This reduces the target's physical resistance. Now this is huge, and without a doubt the strongest elemental reaction for physical damage builds. So as you can see on screen right now, I have recorded some Kaching gameplay, and I have decided to go with Kaya, because once you affect them with the cryo element and then use the electro element, it's going to be superconduct, and it's going to reduce their physical resistance, which means that my physical damage Kaching is going to be dealing more damage overall with them. You tend to see this a lot with some of these physical damage dealers, such as Fischl main DPS and Razor main DPS, as well as Kaching, because you can apply the cryo effect, and then you can easily apply the electro effect, and then it just boosts your physical damage. So keep that in mind. It's a very strong elemental reaction if you do want to go with a physical damage build. Keep this in mind, please, because this can make or break some of your damage output in game. Next up, we have Swirl. So this is when you mix cryo or electro or hydro or pyro with Anemo. Now this deals AoE cryo, electro, hydro, or pyro damage depending on which element it is, and it spreads the debuff of that element. So if we mix pyro with Anemo, we're going to be dealing AoE pyro damage, and then it's going to spread the pyro debuff. So it is pretty strong. You can get some nice elemental reactions out of people like Sucrose, Venti, who is one of the strongest characters in the game, especially for clearing domains and such. And yeah, it's just an overall very strong elemental reaction. Don't be afraid to use Sucrose, and definitely don't be afraid to use somebody like Jean either, because Anemo is a very strong element. The last elemental reaction that we have today is Vaporize. And this is also functions similar to how Melt functions, where you need to get it in the right order. So it consists of obviously Hydro and Pyro. Now, if you apply the Hydro element first and then you apply Pyro, this attack is only going to deal 1.5 times Pyro damage. So rather than if you apply Pyro first and then Hydro, so it's basically like extinguishing a fire, fire, and then you put it out with water, it's going to deal 2 times Hydro damage. Now this is huge, especially for characters like Child, who really benefit off of these elemental reactions, because the majority of Child's damage is Hydro. Same thing opposite, the reason why Diluc does so well with people like Xiangyang and Kaio is because he deals mostly Pyro damage. So do just keep these elemental reactions in mind. I hope I covered everything that you guys really need to know about elemental reactions, whether this is just for beginners or maybe even for people who have known what elemental reactions are but really didn't know all the damage multipliers and basically the correct order for some of these. It's just Melt and Vaporize that you need to pay attention to for the correct order, and once you get the hang of it, it's honestly very simple. You just lay down Xiangyang's E, lay down Diluc's E, or if you're using Child, you can use Bennett's E and then Child's dual swords or his Q or whatever you want to do. So just please keep that in mind. But yeah, guys, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. If you guys did, drop a like, subscribe for me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.